Hello, this is Pamela with Pamela's Portrayals, and today we are going to be working with an acrylic ink. You can also use watercolor for this. What we're going to do, you can see I've drawn some things here on my paper. I've been using just some scrap paper for some different things. And the painting that I did last, the trio of birds, I noticed that when I did it, I didn't like the placement of one of my birds. And something that is a good idea to do, that I don't do a lot, but would be a really good idea to do, is when you're going to be doing a painting that you're not looking at something, you're just kind of creating it in your head. You can see what it looks like in your head, but sometimes when you're going to put it on paper, it looks a little different, or a canvas. What happened when I was doing that trio of birds, I had a little spot down here that I wanted to cover up, and I made my branch go a little lower, which I wasn't thinking would mess up how things were laid out. So in this painting, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as my canvas, as an example of my canvas. This is just watercolor paper, and I practiced on the other side with something. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out my drawing, and it's going to be a really loose drawing. And what it's going to do is going to be abstract. But I'm wanting to kind of lay out how I'm going to lay it out. I'm going to have, I saw something similar to it actually on HGTV, the Property Brothers. They were doing a house, and in one of their renderings of a what the house would look like once they redesigned it, you know how they bring up the little pictures and everything that's already on the wall. It's not real, it's just a dramatization. I saw a painting that I really liked, and I paused it and I looked at it. I tried to find it online, I couldn't find it, so I'm not going to do it exactly because it was really kind of blurry and everything, but I liked the general idea of it, and it looked like a watercolor or an ink wash or something on a canvas, and it was real abstract. So what it was like, I thought it looked like a bird. It may not have been a bird, it may have just been just the way that the ink or watercolor, whatever, came across. So it had like this kind of a shape up here, and then this kind of a shape here, and then this was down here. Then there was a line that went like that, and it was kind of a thicker line. And then it had some other lines that just kind of intersected in the back. And this is not exact, but it was something like this. So I kind of wanted to lay this out just so I could see what it looked like. I kind of like the way that that looks. This would actually be the edge of my drawing, so I will want to pull that out all the way to the edge. But I kind of like the way I've got that, so that's kind of the way I'm going to lay the painting out. Like I said, it's going to be just really abstract. So I've got a piece of watercolor paper here, and I'm going to keep this out so I can kind of look at it, remind myself how I want to do this. I don't think I'm going to draw it in. What I have done though is, for the mat that I'm going to use, right here are the four corners. So I want to keep my painting inside this area here. You can go outside of it, but just realize that it'll be within these four corners here that is going to be showing in my framed painting. So I could draw on, just kind of do a loose sketch of how I want this, and have these limbs go out the way I want them to. Or I could get a brush and put some water down and then drop the paint in there. I'm looking at my paint, I realize I've moved it and now it's all mixed together, so I'm gonna have to make this paint up again. I'm using a plate that I've already used. This is acrylic ink. It's already dried, so when I put paint on top of it, it will not mix in. So I'm going to be using this sienna color. And I'm going to be using this burnt sienna. It's kind of a red color. I'm going to be using, for the majority of the paint, I'm going to be using this burnt umber, which is that really dark brown that mixed in with the sienna there. I've got a little bit of black here, and I've got some gold out here by itself. I may or may not use the gold, so I'm going to push that back. Okay, so this is some of the brushes that I'm going to be using. And I'm thinking while I'm looking at that, maybe I should, for your benefit, because you're not going to be able to see if I'm just putting water on the paper very well, probably. So let's go ahead and just do a real light drawing, kind of a sketch of a really loose bird. And the ink should kind of, and it's just a really loose bird. So I'm going to come out like this, and then have the tail come down like that. The back head of the bird is going to be back here somewhere, and maybe like that, kind of. So I'm going to erase this inside line, and as you can tell, I'm using just a regular eraser. And I'm going to erase this inside line here. I'm going to have my bird have a good size belly on him. I don't want to, just real lightly. If you have a paper towel or something, you could probably use that. Okay, so I've got kind of a basic outline of a bird. And then I've got a branch that is coming through this way, and I'm just going to put one line because I will use the wash to make it thicker. So I've got a line there, and then I'm going to have a line coming in, I think this way, coming up like that, and then we're going to have a line that's going to just come up that way, and I may add to some of those, but this is basically the outline that I'm going for. So to start with now, I'm going to go ahead, and I've got some clear water here. It hasn't been used, and I'm just going to come in and kind of wet this area. Quite a bit wet. I'm just going to wet it good there. I don't know if you can see that. And then I'm going to get some of the brown, add a little water to that. I'm just going to kind of drop that in. And that's kind of showing me where my bird is going to be at. And I am going to make this bird darker than this. This is just kind of my first coat here. And I'm going to rinse my brush out. And out here along these edges, I'm just going to kind of wet this, and I'm going to put some of the sienna color in there. And this is just going to kind of be a background. It's going to be light. I'm going to come up to the bird. And let's get a little bit more. I'm going to water that down. I'm just going to put some over here too. Okay, so I've kind of got that laid out. I'm going to come back with some of the red, and I'm going to put those in some of the corners. Add a little bit more water to that. Soften it up a little bit. Clean my brush, add just some more clear water. A little bit more water here in the middle. Just soften that up. I want my edges a little bit darker than the center. Okay, kind of like that. I'm going to let that dry for a couple minutes, and then we're going to come back because I want to let it dry because I'm going to put some other colors in, but I don't want it to bleed into the colors that I've already got there, and my paper's pretty wet. So we're going to wait just a couple minutes and we'll be back. All right, I've got this dry now. And what I should have done is with this watercolor paper, since I was using such a large area, I should have taped it down. And you can tape it down to the surface of your table, or, you know, of course this can run, so you don't want it to be on anything that you could ruin. But what you would do is you just put a thin piece of tape along all the edges, and that keeps it from buckling while you're working. But I didn't do that, so, but I am telling you. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go back and I'm going to work. I like the edges. I'm going to go back and work on the bird. I've got just a little bit of water on my brush, and I'm going to go and get my brown. And I'm going to come in with this really dark brown. And some black. Just a little bit of water to that. Okay, and I like that for my bird. I'm going to rinse that out. Acrylic ink, if you leave it in your brush, it will dry and harden on your brush, and you don't want to do that. It makes them not work very well after that. So for my really thin lines, which they're really light, I can barely see them, but I can see them, I'm going to come back in with the brown. And the black, and I'm going to kind of mix that together. And so I've got the line here, and then I've got like a line coming this way. I need some more paint here. And this is just really just a very simple, quick, we're not going into a lot of detail with anything. It's just really an abstract painting. Come back with some black and blend in with that. And maybe with some brown right here. This one kind of needs something. Maybe some more black here. Put underneath the bird. And we're just going to kind of soften that edge as we go up. Maybe have that come out there like that. Come out. And I'm going to come back with some of the black on the bottom. Bring that up a little bit. Do some little, I'm not going to make it real straight. It's going to go behind that one. It's got a little branch right there. And we're going to go in and we're just going to kind of put some little branches in there. And then I'm going to do just some little bit of spackling. You can't hardly really see it. I'll put some little and you may be looking at this and thinking, my goodness, that's kind of messy looking. And that's okay, because that is the look I wanted. This is just kind of a real quick, fun painting. And let's see, we've got these little wings here. Come back with some black, kind of emphasize maybe those little wings. Right there. There we have the tail. And we may have just some little kind of little buds or something coming off, or limbs. You could make your limbs and just leave them straight and plain if you wanted. I'm just going to add some little things for some interest. This again is not a realistic paint. I mean, this is just abstract. We're just kind of going in and having some fun. Just being loose and adding things here and there just to see what we like. I'll come back with some of that red. And just put some of that red right on top of the black. Maybe some little tiny something on the ends of these. Kind of filling those in. And I'm just using a round brush for this. And at this point, we've kind of mixed all of our colors together. I'm going to darken that tail up a little bit. I'm going to put just speckles down there too. Okay, now you see I wasn't really paying a lot of attention to anything. I wasn't trying to make anything a certain way. I just kind of put it all on there. Kind of. I did want to add some red and some spots, simply because we had a lot of brown. Okay. Now I'm going to come back with my gold, because as I have said many times before, those of you who know me, I like a little sparkle. And I'm going to come back and I'm just going to put some little sparkle here in the tail, up here in the wing, maybe a little bit on the top of his head, and maybe just a little bit in the back, and maybe just a little bit here, just a little sparkle on the front of him. And I think we're done. Again, this was just a really quick abstract outline of a bird. I'm going to go ahead and dry it. I'm going to put it in the frame so you can see what it looks like.
Yeah.
All right, I thought I was done with this. Again, one of the things that I've said that is hardest for an artist is to know when you're done. Because now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, yeah, I could leave it like that. But then I'm thinking I could go back in with some of these Faber-Castell black ink pens. These are let me read here. I want to make sure I tell you exactly right. They're, I believe that they are, yeah, India ink. These are India ink pens. And I'm also looking at my Liquitex paint marker. I've got the gold and the black there. I've got a B is for bold, which is the tip, the type of tip. As you can see, this is a thicker tip. And then this is an F for fine, and you can see the tip is fine. It's more detailed. And I'm just thinking that maybe I want to go in and maybe just kind of outline some of these little branches. And I'm not doing anything too, I'm not going to do too much. I'm not going to outline all of them. I just wanted some of it outlined. And you could do this with your paint. But I thought I would just go in and outline some of these, give it a little bit more. Just kind of go in and make it more look like some wood here. So that at a distance, when you look at this, you're going to be able to see all those little just some little things here and there. And like I said, you could just paint those in, but I've decided I'm going to go back with the marker and just kind of darken up some of those areas. I'm going to go in and make my wood look a little bit rougher. And I want to be able to tell which one's on top and which one's on bottom. You don't have to do this. This painting was really just fine the way it was. But I like the paint markers. I like to go in and add some detail with it. Maybe put some symbolism of some feathers here. Over here, I think kind of think the gold symbolizes the feathers over here. Got that kind of not straight enough, so just kind of soften that a little bit. But I just wanted to put a little extra something in the wood down here, maybe a little. I just thought the wood needed a little something. And like I said, you could have been done with the original. I just decided I wanted to add a little extra something to it. And so there, that's done. And I am going to frame this again and take another picture with just a couple little extra marks that I made in there. And I'm glad you joined me. I hope you'll join me again. Thank you.
Go.
Okay, so this is the completed project. It took just a few minutes, and we've dried it and we've placed it in this frame. I want you to try this, just something real loose, real quick. But even something like that can get your creative juices flowing and it doesn't look bad. But the frame always brings out the best in your paintings. I hope you'll join me again. Thank you.